homemade dumpling wrappers. Now these guys might seem like they're really tricky to make, but they're so not. They're super easy and 2 ingredients, so that's very cool. Right, so just a little bit of plain flour. And for all you guys that find that dumpling wrappers are hard to find in your local supermarket, this is a great technique to learn, and you'll be making dumplings at home in no time. All right, so I'm just gonna pour in a little bit of hot water. Now, I boiled the water, let it rest for a couple of minutes, so it's still hot but not boiling. Pour that into your flour, start mixing that through from the center. And now once I can start to see this getting a little bit clumpy, it's a very technical term, clumpy, I will just take out my wooden spoon and get my hands in there. So just keep moving and pushing this around until that dough comes together cleanly off the bottom of the bowl. Okay, now once we get to about this stage where I can see most of that flour has been incorporated, I'm going to take that out onto a bench, and I just want a little bit more flour on here so we don't get anything sticking. Okay, and you just want to knead this for about 5 minutes, and there's nothing special about the kneading technique. Just use the heel of your palm, push into the dough, and then keep turning the dough over, and it's just like a turn and smush, turn and smush. Now you really want to let your fingers tell you what is going on with this dough, and as I'm kneading it I can feel it get just a little bit sticky on the edges of my fingers. So I'm just going to sprinkle over just a little bit more flour and keep kneading. Now we get to the point where our dough looks really nice and smooth, and I can feel that it's really firmed up from when we first started kneading. And if I push down on that dough, it's so tight that it bounces straight back up. Now at this point we're ready to let the dough rest. So I want to do that in a sealable bag. Seal that up, and then because that dough is still slightly warm, it's going to steam a little bit in that bag and soften up, and we want to let that rest for about 15 or 20 minutes. Now let's have a look and see what state our dough is in. Now it's gotten beautifully soft, and the easiest way to divide this up is to just get a little bit of flour on there and make a hole in the center, like you're going to make a bagel or something like that. And then just work your fingers and your palms around to make an even ring of dough. Now the whole point of what we're doing here is we're trying to get the dough into perfectly even little pieces. Okay, so we have our ring, and then I'm just going to slice that in half, and 2 even logs is what we have now, and I just want to roll one of those pieces out. I'm going to keep that other piece underneath some plastic because I don't want it to dry out. Okay, and now you can cut your log into even little pieces. Now if you want to be pedantic, each of these little pieces should be around 9 or 10 grams. I find that's the ideal weight for a dumpling wrapper. Now take one of those pieces and put the rest under the plastic with the remaining dough. And the technique here is pretty simple. I like to just get a little bit of flour on that piece of dough and get myself a good shape to start with. So, I mean, there's lots of little special dumpling wooden rolling pins that you can get and all those sorts of things. I find that unless you're like the awesome Din Tai Fung guy, the smaller rolling pins just seem to not work for my hands. I like to have a good grip on what I'm rolling with, and so a plastic cup seems to be the best thing for me. And I just roll that out until I've got a nice sort of vaguely circular shape. And now what you want is you want the center part of the dumpling wrapper to be thicker than the outer part, because the outer edges, that's where you're going to start folding and pleating. So you want those parts to be a little bit thinner. And that's why it's easy to use this cup, because I can hold the dough, push the edges out with my cup, and just keep flipping the dough around. And now you can see I've got a thicker base in the center of my dumpling wrapper, and the outside edges are really fine and thin. So when I go to fold, I'm going to get a much better texture for my dumpling. Now pop that onto a plate or a tray and then keep on going. Now the key to storing and stacking these, so don't put too many on top of each other because the heavy weight of the wrappers tends to make them stick together. Make sure you've got plenty of flour in between each of your wrappers, and then once you've got them all rolled out, you can use them straight away or pile them into little resealable bags. Again, don't stack them too high, and then pop them into the freezer, and then you've got them ready for whenever you need them. Just 30 minutes to an hour defrosting outside of the freezer is plenty of time to give those for when you want to use them. Now, if you'd like some ideas about what to do with your homemade dumpling wrappers, check out my YouTube channel and consider subscribing so you never miss out on a delicious dumpling.